Welcome back to our growing experiment. We're here with Andrea from Rolls Forest Farms. So, Andrea, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your farm?
Sure, yeah. My husband and I moved up here to the north during COVID, and so we bought 220 acres in Warren, and we've never farmed before. We're brand new, so we've been learning as we go. We decided to grow rabbits for meat. We have chickens for eggs, and we've been working on our gardens, trying to break ground and get things growing in the ground as much as possible. And we've added flowers as well, so we just keep on growing.
Okay, so you mentioned that you made a move during the pandemic. So where are you from
We
originally?
did. We came from Ajax down in the south.
Okay, I think my cousin was living in Ajax for a little while there. That's it's close to Toronto, right?
It is, yeah, it's about 45 minutes east of Toronto.
Okay. And what was it that gave you the idea that you wanted to move up north to Warren and start raising rabbits?
Well, I feel like who doesn't? But then apparently a lot of people don't want to do that. So we've always, my husband and I, since we met, we've always enjoyed being outside in the forest. We spend pretty much all of our long weekends going to his hunt camp or his cottage or somewhere camping, somewhere out in the wilderness. And so we were always just looking for a property, hopefully to retire on. And when this one came up, actually, the farmers that we bought it from are Peggy and Eric from Three Forks Farm, who I think in Manitoulin now, and I believe they've been on your podcast as well. So
Yep.
Yeah.
when I saw the posting, everything checked all the boxes of what we were looking for, other than the fact that it was so far away. So we did end up having to quit our jobs and move up here, and we thought we love growing things. We had a small vegetable garden back in Ajax, and we used to sell our extra seedlings. So we'd always have people coming to get seedlings from us. We thought we could do this. Like, let's see what we can do. We had never well, I had never eaten rabbit before, and my husband Brendan had. Um, but as I was doing all of my farming research, realized that rabbit is really a sustainable meat source. And it tastes so similar to chicken that it's versatile. I can put it in pretty much anything. So it was a good option to get started, especially since they're small and manageable, and I don't have to try to like push a cow or a hog or something around when I don't know much about them. So it seemed like a good option, and it's been good so far. It's been really, yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've heard lots of good things about rabbits when it comes to starting. Like they're kind of a low bar to entry. Like they're fairly easy to kind of wrap your head around. They're pretty easy to take care of, and I think investment wise, they're a pretty good conversion. Like on the feed to the meat that you get for them.
Yeah, I think as long as you have the right type of rabbit, like we're not breeding mini lops that people buy for pets, we're breeding meat rabbits. So they get to about 12 pounds as adults. They're big. They're like bigger than a cat, bigger than I can show on my screen. Um, and and the setup was quite easy. We were able to find cages locally, and we were really lucky actually because there was a local guy down in St. Charles who was getting rid of his whole entire rabbitry. So we ended up buying, I think we got 6 cages and 3 rabbits. And the one of the does already had a litter of babies with her, so that was a great way to start. It was just what we needed to get started.
Okay, and then when you want to grow the colony from that point, how do you kind of go about that?
We had 2 does and 1 buck, and we were able to breed that buck with those 2 does. And then we were also able, because the litter that the one doe had come with were not related to the buck that we got, we were able to keep a buck from there just to keep some genetic diversity in our flock, in our, I don't know if it's a herd, flock, our colony. In our barn, we wanted to make sure that we had enough diversity that it could sustain us without having to go and find somebody else with rabbits. And we've been able to we just keep growing as we need to. We've been able to keep 2 bucks and as many does as we want at the time, depending on how many rabbits we're selling. And it's been great. It's easy to scale up or scale down based on demand. And we've just this year built 2 colonies as opposed to keeping the rabbits in cages. We're able to put them into these just a bigger cage, but it's more of a room. and they can jump around and hide and hop and be a little bit more rabbit-like, which makes us so happy. That's part of our goal, is to raise our animals as naturally as we can, but also keeping them safe.
Okay, so like with that sort of style of I don't know what you guess you'd say, of that style of keeping them, what are the sort
Mhm.
of benefits and then the sort of drawbacks?
Yeah, well, we're just learning. We're just in our first sort of batch of rabbits coming out of that colony. I would call it caged versus colony. So in the cages,
Okay.
they tend to they stay a little bit more. I don't know the word to say it. In the colony, they fight with each other. So some of them will have some sores on their ears and some missing tufts of hair. I find that concerns me. So I'm working on figuring out how to make sure that the rabbits all get along, and maybe having to add some more hiding spaces for them, and maybe not having so many in the colony and taking a couple out. Or it might just be that those bucks were old enough to have their hormones flowing, and so they were more ready to fight with each other. It's all a learning experience. And in the cages, they stay cleaner. They're nicer they're all nice and fresh and white. They're not rolling around in each other's gross wood chips that are stained and yucky. I find that it's easier to feed and water them in the colony because it's one big dish and one big bowl, as opposed to having to do all of the cages one at a time. But right now we're doing a
Hmm.
combination of both, and it's working really well. It's nice to have the cages because if we have anybody that does get too injured or we've had a case of ear mites, we can take that rabbit out of the colony, put it into a cage, and keep it quarantined by itself until it's better. If we had one female rabbit that was just beating up on everybody, she thought she was the boss, so we were able to take her out, put her back by herself, and we'll try her again next time. So we're just playing around with things right now, seeing how it goes.
So
Okay.
have you had to learn kind of by trial and error since you started with raising the rabbits? Yeah.
It has 100% been trial and error. Yes. And reading a lot of books. I've bought as many books as I can find on raising rabbits for meat and raising rabbits for pets, just so that I can learn about their health and making sure I'm keeping them well groomed. I cut their nails about once a month. I make sure that they stay in good shape so that they're not getting too overweight. Rabbits who are a little bit too fat won't breed, or they might get pregnant, but then well, either not get pregnant or not carry to term because of too much fat around their visceral organs. So learning all of that the hard way it's just a learning process. Luckily, because rabbits breed so quickly and multiply so quickly, it's a quick learning process. So any mistakes that you make, you can very quickly learn how to try it again in a different way, as opposed to the gardens where you have to wait a whole entire year to try again. The rabbits are a little bit more of a quick turnaround.
And so mentioning the garden there, how has the success been with the gardening so far? How have you been enjoying that?
I love growing. I love getting my hands in the soil. It's been challenging not having the right equipment. We have so much land, and we're trying to grow enough that we can sell the vegetables and make a little bit of money. So we're trying to cut or to break ground, and we don't have. Last year we bought a tiller, a rear tine tiller, and the belt kept breaking. So we'd get a garden made, and then the belt would break, and we'd have to drive out to Sudbury, or I think my husband went to North Bay as well, looking for the right belt, and just sort of equipment letting us down. But as far as growing, once everything sprouts and I can see what's growing, I feel happy. It's a beautiful thing, and it makes me so happy to see it coming up. It makes me happy to harvest and to eat what we've grown and to share what we've grown too. It's so satisfying.
Okay. And so like what are you focusing on for growing? Do you have some specific varieties you focus on?
Yeah, we started out the first year just sort of growing what we thought would sell, what we thought might look good on a table. We had beautiful rainbow colored Swiss chard, but nobody buys it and we don't like to eat it. So year two, we changed. We sort of pivoted and decided we're only going to grow things that we were going to eat ourselves and then sell anything extra. So we had some like radishes, onions. This year we're adding potatoes and strawberries. And we've got tomatoes, peppers, uh, peas. I love fresh peas right off the vine. So if they even make it to the market table, then our customers are lucky because we just go out there and snack away. And
Yeah,
we've
that's one of the
grown,
great things I like about peas too. Go ahead.
oh yeah, peas, I could eat them all day long, except I think they give you an upset stomach if you eat too many. So you got to be careful about that. But we've also added on flowers. Because we have a huge property, we have lots of wildflowers growing. And I started to go out and harvest just some beautiful things that looked really nice and put them together. And I never knew how much I loved making bouquets of flowers. I guess it brings out a side of my creativity that I didn't know existed. And it makes other people happy. Flowers are something that bring joy to people. And so I love that about them, just to be able to give somebody something that brings back memories for them, reminds them of somebody, smells good, makes them feel good. I think flowers are just amazing for mental health. So I'm really excited to get those growing a little bit more this year, since last year we got stuck on not having enough gardens made with this stupid tiller.
So how are you expanding this year?
Well, we did end up cutting all of the garden beds last year. In the fall, we got them all covered. So hopefully, we have 23 working beds for flowers this year. And if I can get them all filled in with my seedlings or my seeds in the springtime, then I would love to have people come to the farm and do pick your own flowers. And I would also love to do some workshops on showing people how to put together a bouquet, how to balance the greeneries and the leaves with the big blooms and how to make it look a little bit nicer. I'd love to just teach people how to be more hands-on with flowers in their gardens and what you can pick and what doesn't last in the vase, all of that stuff.
Are you just expanding the wildflowers or are you adding different kind of flowers?
Oh, we're growing. I've got zinnias and I've got um, lots of cut flowers. If you look at cut flowers or bouquets, I'm trying to grow as many of those as I can in our short climate up here. Um, I can't grow roses yet. I don't have the right greenhouse equipment and heat for them. They needed a little bit, I think they need a longer season. I would love to grow roses though. That'll be a future goal. We've got now my mind is going blank. Sunflowers, lots of sunflowers, different colors and different varieties and shapes of sunflowers. They grow amazingly here. And some green things like Bells of Ireland, which is just a green stem that looks really nice and it smells beautiful. And I've got some lemon basil, which smells like Fruit Loops and just makes me, as soon as you walk past it, you go, it smells so fruity.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Yeah, it
different
sounds like you
colors
got
and a
kind of
lot
like
of
a
different
nice.
shapes.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. I think there's a little bit of a delay there, so go ahead,
Mhm.
continue.
I think that was it. Lots of different flowers of different colors and shapes and different varieties to help if I do some workshops where I have people coming to pick. I want them to have some variety. I don't want them to just have the same flower in different colors. I want them to have lots to choose from.
And what have you started so far in regards to flowers and vegetables?
For seeds, this is my big starting week. I drive a school bus part time, and so I have the week off this week. It's March break, so this will be my big seed starting week. But so far, I've started
Mm.
petunias. I'm hoping to get some petunias. They're tiny, tiny ones right now, but they'll fill out a whole basket. And then so I'm hoping to sell some hanging baskets of petunias in May. They've already been going. I've got onions started. We've had our garlic in the ground since the fall, so that is already planted. And then I had some tiny garlic that wasn't worth putting in the ground, but I've put it in some bigger planters to try to grow those bulbs to keep them going next year. And tomatoes, I've started a couple of tomato plants.
Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat. We just sort of started all of our stuff there. We direct sowed some more kind of like cold hardy stuff in our greenhouse there. We just planted lettuce, kale, well, 2 types of kale, spinach, and broccoli. So,
And beets.
oh, and beets too.
Beautiful.
That's right. Oh, and radishes and carrots.
And carrots.
Yeah, yeah.
Got a whole garden going already.
Yeah, well, that's what we're hoping. We think this year we kind of got the greenhouse figured out a little bit better. I think we'll have a nice harvest come June, and we'll have quite a bit of stuff, and we'll be picking stuff already, hopefully a little bit before then when things start to mature. So yeah, we're like you too. Like we're pretty new to kind of doing all this. This would be technically our 4th year, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we kind of feel like we're just kind of starting to get the handle of some stuff now, but we're still learning stuff all the time.
Yeah, for sure. It takes a whole year, right? So if you make mistakes during your growing season, you have to sort of regroup in the fall, figure out what you need to change, and then you have to wait until spring to make those changes. And it's a long process, so it takes a while to get it right. I don't, if you ever get it right, I don't know.
That makes me think too. So when it comes to like the style of say planting you use or sort of the principles you think about when you're planting with say your vegetables, how do you orient yourself with that?
We made the decision before we even got here that we will not be using no chemical fertilizers, no chemical pesticides or herbicides. So we're hoping to regenerate the soil, so regenerative our agriculture. We use our rabbit manure a lot. So all of the rabbit manure that comes out of our barn goes directly onto our gardens, and that helps fertilize naturally, and it helps to bring in all of the organisms, the living organisms that help that soil thrive. We've had a lot of challenges with weeds. They just grow so fast. So we've been using really thick weed cloth that we can reuse year after year, because I'd rather not use something that has to be thrown out at the end of the season. And we've bought some frost cloth and insect netting that we can just put on hoops over top of our garden rows to help with keeping out bugs and making sure that our season is longer. We can keep the frost away a couple of days before the actual frost date and after the frost date to keep those things growing. So just doing our best to keep everything as natural as we can. I know sometimes we have to use different implements or different materials that are not natural, but as long as we're not spraying any chemicals on our food or on the food that's going to our animals, we're happy with that. We don't want anything to be chemical.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think there's definitely a trend towards more of those sort of principles that you're laying out there, exactly like that. I know that's kind of how we sort of think about things too. We try to keep things as natural as possible.
Do you find is there any difference in growing vegetables versus growing flowers? We're gonna start implementing a little bit more flowers into our garden, and we don't know much about growing flowers. So is there anything you want to share about that?
Every flower seems to be different. So it's for me, it was a little bit of a steeper learning curve. I think maybe because I had already had some experience with vegetables and not so much experience with the flowers. But I find flowers are easier to save seeds from. So if you are able to save your seeds and grow them again next year, they get stronger and better and more prolific. And the bugs just like to eat the petals and make holes in all of your beautiful flowers. So we're trying to keep away. I think that the tarnish plant bug got us last year and just destroyed some of my flowers. So we're going to make good use of that insect netting this year on those flowers and keep them looking beautiful. Or actually what I hope to try this year is an organza bag, to put an organza bag around the bloom of some of the flowers so that the stem is still exposed, but the flower petals can't be eaten by those bugs.
Okay.
We've talked to a lot of people that talk about how there's different plants that help with certain type of insects. If you plant a lot of different type of flowers, does that usually also help with preventing insects?
I don't know yet. I hope so. I'm looking into it a little bit more. I know that what I'm hoping to do is plant this year I'm going to sprinkle some chive seeds in with some of my other flowers, and the chives will bloom and have those nice purple sort of puffball ends. But because a lot of insects don't like things in the allium family, so they don't like onions, garlic, chives, that kind of thing, I'm hoping that might help to keep some of the bugs away. And at the very least, it will hopefully keep some of the black flies and mosquitoes away so that when I'm out there doing work, I have some peace.
Yeah,
And marigolds.
We got a, what's that, sorry?
And marigolds. Marigolds are good for keeping away different things in the soil. I guess they let out stuff from their roots, and so it helps keep away some of the bad nematodes that might attack things underneath the ground. So marigolds are a good one for growing with your vegetables as well.
Yeah, the marigolds is something we're trying this year, I think, for the first time, right?
Successfully, hopefully, yeah.
Yeah,
We planted some last year, but it was too late in the season, so we didn't get to see any flowers from it. But we already started those seeds because I think those are when you start earlier on, and they actually germinated really quickly.
Yeah, a lot of ours actually did. We planted in Pro Mix some of them, and we planted some of them in just soil from the dome there. And the ones in the Pro Mix there, they just seemed like they sprouted really quick, like maybe a week, not even.
Not even.
Yeah, like 4 days, maybe 5 days.
Quick.
Yeah, marigolds, I find they sprout really fast and then they grow. They're almost maintenance free. They just take care of themselves. Like they're really nice flowers to grow.
So when you have a pod with the marigolds, let's say there's a few coming out, are you wanting to thin them and just carry on the one from the pod, or can you just leave them all grow?
I would just let them all grow. They'll take care of themselves and they'll they shouldn't get stunted. I'm sorry, I have a 5-year-old here who wants to get into my
no
face.
problem.
I would just let them do their thing. I wouldn't thin out marigolds.
Okay.
Well, that's nice to know. Then it's better to have more anyways. That's kind of what we wanted to have. So that turned out good. I think we ended up having extra in those pots because I planted a bunch extra because I figured they were older seeds. But they all seem to have went anyways. So
never complain about extra flowers. It's a bonus.
Yeah, no, we're definitely excited to see how all those turn out and getting into planting and stuff like that. Yeah, and you must be getting ready to really get going here soon too, eh? Like you mentioned, you're starting the seeds. You must be what else are you getting going on?
I'm hoping tonight to start peppers. I want to get all my peppers started, and then for flowers, I have a few. I was hoping to start Lisianthus this year, but I think I missed the mark because they take so long to germinate and then so long to start. So I'm going to save those seeds for next year and hopefully start them in, I think January is like the good time to start Lisianthus. But I'm going to start my Bells of Ireland tonight. They take a long time. And I have like just piles. I have piles of seed packets. I need to really organize them. I need to figure out what I'm going to do. I have, the people hold their seeds in those clear cases, like a photo box craft case. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's how I've been trying to organize my seeds. And I have so many that they've overtaken that and are everywhere. So I have to go and search through what I'm going to plant.
No, we're fortunate so far where we're able to organize all of our seeds in like a little Vessies box. Like from the first year that we ordered seeds, we have a box left over from that. And when we buy new seeds, like lately we've been growing a lot of seeds from Northern Wildflowers. There's the cut leaf seeds that they do, their cut leaf line. And we've been growing a lot of those. But anyways, we just take them all. It's almost like a filing cabinet kind of, and we just sort of just stack them in there and wrap them up with like an elastic band. And so far that's been working out. I mean, if we start getting into having like more varieties and stuff like that, we might have to get a little more organized, but it's we're lucky we don't have to deal with that scale yet. We're like how you're saying there. I can't imagine how many seed packets you got.
It was I think I used a Vesey's box my first year with the elastic bands and the filing system inside the box. And then when I started to do flowers, I couldn't hold back. I was looking through those seed catalogs and it was just so many that I needed to order. So that's when it exploded.
Yeah. And how do the kids how do they adjust to the farm? How do they like that?
We have one. She just turned 5 last week, and she's been here since she was about 2.5. And I don't think she's ever going to know a different life. Like this is just, it's perfect. She gets to go outside. She gets to get dirty. She gets to help me. I mean, it takes me 100 times longer to plant things when I'm showing her what I'm doing, but she's learning. And I think she really enjoys it. She loves to water everything and she loves to see. We have teeny tiny little pots that she'll start her own seeds in, and then she gets to watch them grow. And I just think that's wonderful. I think that's how every kid should get to experience something like that. And then also having rabbits, and we just got some goats in December as well. So she's learning about taking care of those animals and that they have to get fed every day, even if we don't want to go out there in the cold. And even if the water bottles are frozen, we still have to go. I think she's getting some good lessons in responsibility.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's definitely I think that's one of those things that you get from living on a farm, and that's something that definitely you go back a couple of generations where that was much more of a normal upbringing. Like if you go back a couple of generations living in Canada, most people were living on or near a farm. I
Hmm.
mean, well, I mean a lot of people were. There still were your cities and stuff like that, but you had a lot of people, right? And you have
Yes.
exactly what you're talking about there, those responsibilities. You learn like, yeah, you don't want to get up, but someone's got to feed the animals and someone's got to make sure they got
Hmm.
water because, we're responsible for them. We got to take care of them. Can't let them freeze out there. So,
Hmm. Yeah,
So
but
how
I
many
think that
goats do you
also,
have?
oh, we got two goats, and they are both meat goats. So their breed is Boer. They're Boer goats. We got them from a neighbor who had to unfortunately move, and we're really going to miss them. But they wanted somebody that they knew would look after their animals, and they thought of us, and we were super honored and said yes, of course, we would love to take those on. And they're both female, so we're hoping once we get the hang of it, because still learning by trial and error, we are figuring out goats and how to keep them healthy and trim their hooves and all of that fun stuff. And then we're hoping to breed them and hopefully produce some goat meat as well.
yeah, I guess I never thought about that when it came for caring for animals like that, like goats with their hooves. But I mean, I know people trim horse hooves, so I guess why wouldn't they trim goat hooves too?
Yep, goat hooves, they need to be trimmed. They get overgrown just like every other animal that's domesticated. And so right now we're working on building a goat stanchion, which is like the milking stand that's just elevated a little bit off of the floor so that we're not ruining our backs. Because, I mean, hey, we're not that old, but our backs feel like we're about 90 right now. And there's special clippers that just look like pruners for your garden, and will just take off a little bit of it's just like our nails, so it doesn't hurt them, but keeps their feet flat so that they're not getting legs that are not sitting properly and feeling uncomfortable.
Okay. So I imagine that you guys are doing that all basically manually too, right? So does your husband have any help for doing that? Like, is it just the two of you out there working, or?
Just the two of us right now, and the biggest challenge with that has been making sure one of us is always available to help with our daughter, who just is either she's too cold and she's distracted, or she's hungry and she doesn't want to be out in the barn for that long. So it's hard to get anything finished from start to finish. But yeah, it's just the two of us, and we're learning as we go. And hopefully, once we have enough income coming in, we'll be able to get some help and hire somebody that can also share their experience with us, and we can teach them what we know, and that would be awesome.
Well, yeah, that's really cool. I mean, it's interesting to hear that hear like the real like starting stages of kind of the farm kind of thing, right? And kind of learning as you go and building as you go, right? because like we've talked to a fair amount of people now, and most of them are like, I guess they're kind of like where you're getting into now, where like you're kind of like gotta get in the hang of certain things and expanding and stuff like that too. And so like it's kind of cool to see that, like that learning curve, right? Because most people we talk to are just like you too. They teach themselves, and in a lot of cases I mean, some cases they have some experience or some background, but in a lot of cases they're just they're learning on the go.
Yeah, and it may be a slow process, but I think it's a great process because we learn the hard way almost, which helps us to avoid that mistake completely the next time around. And it's been really educating. I've It's been a long process, but I'm happy with what I've learned, and I'm quite satisfied with myself for having started with almost nothing and getting to where we are now. So I think we're doing a good job.
What are some of the goals that you guys have for your farm?
We This past month we've successfully received a small business grant. So we're hoping to use that money to build a high tunnel, which will be just an unheated greenhouse to hopefully grow some more spring flowers. I would love to have some flowers available for Mother's Day next year. So that's one goal. We're also going to build a farm stand just to have all of our products at the end of the driveway where people can come and do a self-serve shopping for both flowers and vegetables. And the meat too. We'll be able to keep frozen meat in a cooler and have that available. We've partnered up with a couple of other farmers in the area, and we're starting, it's called the Sown Farm Stand Tour this year. I don't know if you've heard of the Powassan Farm Stand Tour, but we're using that as a model. So it's basically just having a
I've
bunch
heard
of
about
farms,
the
small
farm
farms
stand
that have
tour
farm
that you
stands
guys are going to
getting
be doing.
together.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, just getting ourselves on the map, letting people know that there is a map and you can look at these different farms, and we all have farm stands that you can drive to on a Sunday and check us out and buy something, support small local farms, and hopefully that is going to enable us to not have to leave the farm to sell our products, because it's very difficult to go to a market for a full Saturday, and especially with a kid and with animals to take care of, you're leaving everything and having to go sit somewhere to try to sell your stuff. So if we can have it, people coming to us, it would make life so much easier.
Yeah, that's another thing that I find that there's sort of a trend towards too, that we're seeing with small farms, is building sort of farm stands or working together with other farms and sort of like having all their goods kind of in one farm stand in one place, or carrying each other's goods and stuff like that. So like that's really cool, and I mean it's the nature of what the space you're in, right? Like you have to sort of innovate because like you're like your smaller scale farm, like it's a hard kind of space to be in a lot of ways, because like you said, you want to be selling your goods, but you also got to be like at the farm working, right? So it's cool to see that innovation and like that kind of entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of us, you have to pay to have a table at a market. So for each day that you're there, it's might be $30, might be 40, might be 60. It depends on the market and how big it is and what they offer as far as advertising. But when you might not have that much product to sell to make that money back. Plus, you're gone the whole day. So it's a really difficult place to be in. We're looking into the Sudbury market this year. I know they open applications at the end of April, but it might not be feasible for us to do that every single week. So to be able to have people come here when we're not able to bring the food to the city, and let them come out and see where the food comes from, and to see how much work goes into it and what's involved, and to meet the farmers and have a conversation, or to see the livestock guardian dogs doing their job, or the barn cats walking around. I think it's an experience in itself, and I'm so happy to be part of it. I think it's a really great opportunity.
Yeah, like Jordan said, right? It's really great that there's innovation and trying to figure ways to make that work. And you could definitely see the pros and cons, right? Like for us, we live in the city, so for us, it is a little bit harder to get out there. Like if we wanted to go every weekend, right? So there is the benefit for a local farmers market where we could go and get some stuff a little bit closer to home, that kind of thing. So it is really hard to find a balance where we can make sure that we are supporting all the farmers and getting the products we need.
I see you having a drink of water, and I should probably do
the same. Yeah, well, it's that is kind of how it goes, right? Like that's like another challenge that we find too is like say for getting like eggs. Like lots of small farms will have say chickens and stuff like that, and they'll have eggs, but there's like basically once you have like a certain amount of eggs or a certain amount of chickens, I think you have to have a license to sell them, or no, sorry. You need a license to sell them off of your property, and then I think there's also all different kinds of licensing you need once you get into having more than a certain amount and whatever else. So, but anyways, like just getting access to eggs, like that's one of those things that's not always at the market because I think it's almost too much of a hassle for like a smaller scale farm to even do. So what you have to do is you have to go out there. So it is kind of like it's I like the idea of like having that map too, like because then let's say it makes it a little more reasonable when you want eggs because you can go out and stop at a couple of other places if they're along the way and get a couple of other things. So you turn it into like maybe a day out trip with the family, shopping kind of thing.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we're hoping for. And yeah, with eggs are a bit funny. You have to bring your eggs to a grading station if you want to sell them anywhere that's not your own private property. So to bring eggs to a farmer's market, they have to have gone to a grading facility to check their quality and their weight and their size and all of that stuff. It costs money to do that. And I believe there's one maybe south of Powassan, and then there's one on Manitoulin, I think. So it's not like they're that accessible. So having people come out to get eggs is definitely a bonus. I think that's going to be great for small farmers who aren't able to sell their eggs anywhere else. And then we've planned it on Sundays, hoping that it'll bring people out for like a Sunday drive, come out into the country and enjoy the weather and enjoy the scenery and go and visit a couple of farms that are all located in that same area. Some might have meat, some might have artisanal products, some might have some vegetables and some soap. So some might have all of the above. And it'll be nice to have just to have it yourself on a map so that people know where to find you, because that's not easy to find us sometimes.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like there's not really a centralized resource for that totally, I don't think, where it's like, well, actually no, there are some people who are doing something sort of like that. So for example, we interviewed Shop G'day. They're doing something very much like that, where they're basically they have a site where there's a bunch of farms that go on there and you can get in contact with those farms and get the products from those farms and stuff like that. So it is sort of a hub in a sense, I guess. But that's kind of what we need, right? You need to be able to like show where the farmers are so that they can have exposure to the sort of market because that's what they need, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's being able to find a lot of farms that are off the beaten path. Like we're fairly close to Highway 17. We're located by Kate's Country Kitchen. So we can say that and people have an idea of where we are. But there are so many farms that you have to go down 5 different side roads that are all dirt roads, and you have to be able to find them. So yeah, we're really happy to have a tool to help people find all of those locations.
It's funny you said off the beaten path. We literally went off the beaten path. We went to the bee farm there.
Yeah.
That's what it's called there, off the beaten path. Yeah. I thought that was kind of funny how that lined up, but yeah, that's great. That's I'm glad to hear that you guys are having some success and you guys are learning lots, and it's interesting to hear what you guys are doing out there. So if anyone wants to kind of get a hold of any of your products or come and see your farm stand, or where do they find your content? Where do they find your products?
You can Google Walsh Forest Farms and it should bring up our website, which is just walshforestfarms.com. And we are also on Instagram and Facebook at Walsh Forest Farms. Should be all pretty much the same content on both. And then we are located in Warren, in Marks Day, Warren, close to Kate's Country Kitchen off of Highway 17. So if anybody's in the area and wants to buy eggs or rabbit, or when we have the flowers and vegetables growing, come on by on a Sunday. We'll have them out front.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored that you even asked.